Push the Point are now partnered with Living Realms, a pioneering local game store for Flesh and Blood in the UK from the very beginning. Push the Point patrons now get 5% discount on the Living Realms online store, so go check it out. Please enjoy the episode.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Pushpoint Interviews. Today we'll be doing another interview highlighting someone from the Flesh and Blood community. So we've got Armoury line and also, you have many hats. So do you want to talk a bit about the various things you do with Flesh and Blood and kind of your relationship with Flesh and Blood? And introduce yourself as well.
Sure do. Folks, my name is Hung. I love Flesh and Blood TCG. As Dan said, I maintain a small blog about the Flesh and Blood scene in London called the Armoury line. I also maintain a Discord bot for Flesh and Blood called Sultania. And I also do quite a bit, I suppose, of community building for my local area on the southeast of London as well. So yeah, lots of things. Flesh and Blood is an amazing part of my life.
Yeah, I mean, we really wanted to get you on because I was like, there's so many things that we could talk about. But to start with, I think people will be really interested in kind of the work you've done. We'll start with the community building and all the work you've been doing in your area of London of building a community for Flesh and Blood. And I thought it might be really interesting for you to talk about how you went about broaching the idea of bringing Flesh and Blood to your local game store and how you went about trying to build a kind of a new community of people playing Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, let's start with that. So, as I said before, I am in the sort of southeast end of London. London is a very rich area for Flesh and Blood. I think pretty much like any part of London, there'll probably be a store which prominently has a Flesh and Blood scene. Like maybe like a year ago, there wasn't really a Flesh and Blood scene in the southeast area where I am, so around Oakland to Bromley, and I wanted to start one because, well, mainly because it's a great game, and I think that a lot of people will enjoy playing the game if there is a store around the area that essentially supports it. So I walked around and I found our local store, Troll Trader Bromley, and I'm very glad that I did because they were very open to welcoming Flesh and Blood, which is really great. And more importantly, they also have a space for us to like sit down and play. And I think, yeah, the fact that we have a store that's so supportive of the game in the area is probably one of the reasons why the Flesh and Blood scene in the southeast London area started to grow. Because people will walk into the store because they wanted to maybe find a new TCG to play, or they just a few interesting like figurines or things like that, and they come in and they have a look, and the store staff would go, "Hey, you heard about Flesh and Blood?" and then they're hooked. So yeah, it was really cool that we found each other in a sense. That's the sort of one of the really cool things I found whilst on this journey of building a community, which is finding the store. The other sort of part is really, now that we found a store, how do we get the scene to actually start get it going? And at first it was pretty, I guess I would say it's a bit tough because it's a new scene, it's a new game even. And I would show up every week, consistent. I'll be consistent about it. I'll turn up every week, and most of the weeks I'll just turn up alone. Some weeks someone will come in and go, "Oh, hey, I've heard about Flesh and Blood. I want to play a few games," and we'll play a few games. But most of the weeks at first, it was quite lonely. Just come in and hang out for a bit. But because I came every week, I could see the fact that everyone sort of knew, okay, if I come to Trader on this night, someone's gonna be there to play Flesh and Blood with me.
Yeah.
They start coming, start getting hooked onto the game. It becomes a routine, and I think just having someone sort of championing the game that the store consistently every week is probably also another reason why the scene started to get going at the store. And it really sort of started to kick off once we get things like the Armoury kit. We started to organize the Learn to Play. We have like a couple now. So we built the Learn to Play decks. We pop it into the event and run, like once a month. People show up, they get hooked, they become regulars. And now we have a fairly consistent weekly Armoury. So every week go fire, which is amazing. And yeah, I really hope that we keep going this pace. We start to get, bigger events like skirmishes, and then maybe at some point we get a progress. That would be really cool to see.
That would be amazing. I'm always keen for more London ProQuest to give us some more of a chance. So yeah, it's I guess a lot of it is dedication, right? Like you said, it might seem like at the beginning it may be a bit difficult, like you're going every week and you at that point you don't know what the future is gonna bring, but because of the dedication, you've now got this regular group, and firing every week. That's when you know that you can step back at some point, be like, I can have a week off now if I need it, because I know I've got the confidence that this thing is going to happen without me.
Yeah, and persistence and patience, basically, as you said. It was, I think it's very rewarding, honestly. This week, actually, I'm not going to Trove Traders Armoury, but it's still firing. It's just it's a budding community, I think I would say at this point, which is great.
And I know that
thriving one day.
I know that you made a lot of like you said, you made a lot of Learn to Play decks. Did you think did that have did you find that really helped with bringing new players into the game because they had something that they could play with, or did you find that was just a good selling point when people could come even if they weren't engaged in the game and they at least had a deck that they could use?
I'd probably say that that's probably one of the most attractive points of the Learn to Play, which is new players come in, they get a deck that is built for new players. And because it was built, so we actually build it from bulks that existing players bring in. You can actually just give away those decks, which for the players feels amazing because they come in, they play the deck, love it, and they get to take it home and they play it more with their friends who they came with. I think having those decks was probably one of the sort of pinnacles of a Learn to Play event, essentially.
And I made a few Learn to Play decks in my time. I'm not sure sometimes people appreciate how long it actually takes to put some of these decks together.
Yeah. They it was a whole experience. We made between our group at Trove Trader, we made maybe like 200 decks.
200?
200 decks.
So how many people were you expecting?
Well, we weren't expecting any, but because we had such a large amount of bulk, we were like, well, since we have this whole, our hands were just in this routine already, we might as well just shuffle around and just get all this deck built. And we ended up with a lot of decks. We still have some. We also sent it off to some of the other Blood players around the country who wanted to start a scene in their area as well. But because they're the only, or one of the very few players in there, they don't have a lot of bulk, so we just survival bulks or send the decks themselves over there so that they can get some new players, get more Flesh and Blood players in.
That's so good too. Like I know that in the UK, there's a few areas that have some really prominent players and are still building their like Armoury scene. Like I know Oxford, for example, is host to a lot of really talented players, and they're also at this stage where they're building out their Armoury. And I think it's really refreshing to see some of the Armouries or some of the stores that came to the game later now getting, like you say, skirmishes and pro quests. Like I go to the store down in Canterbury, and I think I can't remember if it was their first or their second pro quest, but they've reached that point now where they're getting the the Road to Nationals and the Procrests, and I can't wait to see this happen to some of the stores that have started recently, like Troll Trader as well. It'd be fantastic to have, because London's a pretty big place. It takes a long time to get to some of these. I've been to Troll Trader I think twice, and it is a little bit of a trek. I do really love the store. They're very nice there as well. But it's a little bit far for me. But
out of the way for sure, yeah.
You know me, I like traveling. I was hearing about some stores in I think it was Dorset or something, and I was like, good.
Was Dorset, yeah. I'll take a day trip.
Yeah, it'd be nice. More by the beach. That's what we need. More fab at the beach. That's going to be the 2K23 way of doing things. Let's we've got a few subjects to cover, so we'll move on to something that I am very amazed by, and I know people on the UK Discord are very amazed by, which is the essentially the FAB bot that you've made. I think it's Sultania, or forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, but I'd love you to tell me the story of how this came to be a thing, and kind of maybe explain to the audience who might not be on the UK Discord what this thing is that you made.
Yeah. So Sultania will hopefully be your one-stop shop Discord bot for all things FAB.
Yeah.
At the moment, some of the functionalities that it provides is getting your 90-day XP based on your country. Grabbing a card, as if you were seeing on Fabry, so it'll show you, pitch costs, what it does, whether it has multiple pitch values, etc. And as of this morning, it also will get you your global 90-day XP, which would have been great before the PT cut off, but I didn't get the time to get it in before that. But for the next PT, hopefully some of our viewers will find it useful to be able to see their 90-day XP ranking without leaving Discord, because why would we want to do that?
It's true. And also you get to sort of compare and contrast with the other people that are in the chat. Someone's saying they're the best player ever, you could just throw down your worldwide XP.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so you have to forgive me, like, how are you accessing the data? Like, how do you actually, I think the FAB library stuff, I can understand that bit better, but in terms of the leaderboard and the XP, how do you go about fetching that data and pulling it into the Discord?
So I guess if you go onto the TCG website and you go into the leaderboards, you notice when you search for a particular player, and then global or by country, the URL will have a query of what that data being fetched is. So, or for yourself, for example, it would be TCG/leaderboard country equals GB for Great Britain, and then it would actually show the page. So that's essentially what the bot is doing. When you give it the command, it'll all that data, pop it onto the URL, query data, grab it, and send it back on Discord.
So cool. And is this something you're planning to roll? Well, as we were saying, we already have this on the UK Discord. Is this something you're hoping to roll out to? Is it like something that anyone, if they have their own Discord, can they just add this? Is it as simple as that?
Pretty much, yeah. So if you're watching this, go on, add it to your Discord, try it out. It's very useful, pretty good.
We'll put a link in the description below for people if you wanna. I'm imagining, so this is why I should never be involved in these kind of things, because I'm very much the person that has the idea that ends up it being too much work. But I'm imagining Talishar when it's like loading up and it's like name and what their like global ranking is on FAB TCG, and then you're just like, yeah, quick disconnect because they're like number one. It's like maybe one day. It's really cool. I wanted to highlight it because I think it's another example. I assume so I guess like why, like the question is like why did you make it? Like was it just a passion project? Was it just something you thought, you know what, I think I can make that? Is there a story behind how the original idea came to you?
Yes, there's a quite a nice story behind it. So I originally started to work on Sultania during national seasons in 2022, last year. Um, there were a few players in my playgroup who were aiming to qualify to XP, and one of us, a lovely chap named Arian Sultani, was actually updating a spreadsheet, keeping track of everyone in the playgroups,
Wow.
what their rank is and what their XP is, and it helped us sort of like well, essentially helped us verify whether or not we may or may not make it into Nats.
Yeah.
But yeah, updating the spreadsheet, I think it was quite manual. I wanted to help essentially lift some of that workload off Arian so he can spend his time practicing for the actual Nats itself.
Probably more useful, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I made Sultania, and you'll probably notice, I guess, that Sultania is actually named after Arian,
Yeah.
so Sultani A.
That's so
Essentially.
cool. That's a great story. Right. So the other thing is the Armoury line. So that was the first thing I introduced you as, and it's the blog posts that you do, which essentially are covering a lot of the stuff that we talked about today in this interview. And you've been writing these blog posts for some time. Is this just something that you wanted to do to kind of like talk about your journey in Flesh and Blood? Maybe talk a little bit about the Armoury line and like what was your thinking around that too?
Yeah, I guess for me, Armory Line is sort of just a place. Well, I wouldn't say fully for myself. It's just me sharing my thoughts, my experience. I think it's just a way, yeah, for me to document a little bit like this sort of journey in my life, because it honestly was an amazing experience. Like every word I write on the Armory Line is genuinely the truth. Like we have such a great community in London and the UK, and the games I play, people I meet, all amazing. I guess it's just a way for me to sort of leave something. Maybe when I'm 60, I was like, oh, you know, my bank just charged me £11 for something called the Armory Line domain. What was that? Oh, this is that's how it is. That's cool. And then yeah. There's a little bit of that, but I guess it's also, you know, a way as well for new players. I've had a few people come to me who are new players, and they said that, you know, they saw the Armory Line, and they thought that the way that I expressed things was very relatable, because I was also a new player when I started writing it as well. And I guess it helped them feel comfortable joining us playing FAB, which I think is amazing, and I guess that's also one of the reasons why I try to keep it going as well.
That's really cool, and I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, I often think about some of the things we've done with Push the Point, and the experiences we have are just going to be when I'm a lot older. I'll be able to look back and be like, well, that was really cool. And like when we got the artwork commissions, that was something we wanted to do from really early on, because we knew that, like, you know, whatever happens with Push the Point, we'll always have this piece of art that we can remember it by, and it's like leaving a bit of something for you to look back on. It's almost like keeping a journal or something, so you can remember all the things you do. Sometimes look back through my I keep like a paper diary because I can't keep track of my life, and I sometimes look back at the old one and I'm like, man, I played a lot of FAB last year, but it's still really nice to see. I think we shouldn't not ask about the fact that obviously you play the game, and you play the game yourself, and you've been you know, how is that going for you, I guess? Where is this question going? Talk about like how your sort of, you know, professional Flesh and Blood career. I mean, we talk about this, but as if we have professional Flesh and Blood careers. But like, how's the game going with you at the moment? How are you enjoying the game? Like, what are you looking forward to in the future and things like that when it comes to actually playing the game?
Yeah, so I started playing around sort of Tales of Ari release, and like very much hit the ground running with the armories, went to skirmish very soon after. Just keep ramping up, playing competitively,
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. I think in general, I've been doing pretty well. I think a couple skirmish season ago, a top four, which is nice. This PQ season, I only went to one, and I landed like at 10, so outside the top eight just, which is still me. That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially because London players, they're good. You're good. Everyone's good.
I'm not even that good as well. That's the scary thing. Like, I feel exactly the same. You're just like, why is everyone so good?
Yeah, I think for me, I would really like future goal as a player to continue to improve. Hopefully at one point I'll be like sitting at the cuffs of all these good players. Like, yeah, I can play with them, and maybe I'll win a few games.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
That's a good goal. I think I always used to take it like one step at a time. My first goal in Flesh and Blood was to beat Simon Denning, because I used to play online with all the online people, before this game really took off in the UK, and I just used to lose to Simon like every flipping week because he was too good. But then I beat him eventually, and I don't think I've ever played Simon in a real life game of Flesh and Blood in a tournament ever. Somehow we've always dodged each other, but it's just taking it step by step, isn't it? Like thinking, what do I want to achieve at the next tournament, and like I'm being happy with not just shooting for like the moon and then being like, oh, I didn't quite make it up. It's like having those step by step goals is really cool. And also you have the excuse that the rest of us content creators have, which is that we're so busy creating all these amazing things for FAB that we don't have time to put all this practice and stuff in, right? I wanted to finish up with just what are your future goals when it comes to Flesh and Blood? Like of all the things we talked about today, be it building the community, building the bot and pushing that out more, doing the writing that you're doing and playing the game, like what would you like to achieve in the next year of FAB, I guess?
Ooh, so I guess in the next year of FAB, I think a lot of my sort of focus will probably be on Sultania. Now that it's sort of semi-public, essentially, or at least very public in the UK. Yeah. I think my focus for next year will be Sultania. We'll continue to practice quite a lot. My man owed him. Just got his nerf. I'm not discouraged. In fact, I got discouraged, panicked, built something different, didn't work, go back to the original build and found out, okay, the original build was still pretty good. So, practicing with him, keep going to queues, skirmishes, and try to get even better at playing Flesh and Blood. So yeah, very again, many hats, but hopefully I'll get to do them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's really cool. Like, it's a good aim to be shooting for, especially with the hero you love playing as well. So we will put links to the best way to get in contact about the bot and the Armoury Line website in the description below of this video. But I just want to say a huge thank you for coming on today and talking about kind of just your experience with Flesh and Blood and the things you've been doing and the communities you've been building. Thanks so much for sharing that with the Push the Point audience.
Thank you. No, thank you all for having me.
Not a problem.
And thank you, Dan.
Yeah, right. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.